Hi, everyone. I'm Cindy Oser of Hobby Memorial Library, and we are ready for another one of our night sky tours with CTC astronomer, Mr. Warren Hart. He is going to talk to us today about our October constellations, and we're going to kind of walk you through them and show you where you can find them on our library website. So, without further ado, let's take it away.
Thank you very much, Cindy. And welcome to all that are watching here. Like she said, we're going to be talking about what will be happening in the month of October. And specifically, want to point out to you the constellations that will be predominant during that month. And also just mention as we go through the calendar for the month, different activities that would be coming up here. So if we will go ahead and we get started, the first thing would be we want to show you a copy of the calendar here for the month, and there Cindy has the website for the planetarium, and she can also, if you want to talk them through, Cindy, on how to find the calendar there and where the astronomy info is.
Sure. Okay. Well, you can find this on our library website. It's under the study guides. This is the astronomy study guide, and it's got our night sky calendars, our constellation maps, books, databases, films, internet resources, and fun activities and additional astronomy documents. So we're going to go to the page that has the night sky calendars, and we've got our October calendar right there for you to get started.
All right, very good. I'm going to get it here for us. If you can see, we are on today, Thursday, the last day of September, and there is information on there giving us uh, what has been happening the latter part of October. But as we go, let's look at October the 1st. Now, some of you may be new to what we're doing, and I've posted on here. There are 3 separate puzzles I make up for each month, and there in the blue is a link to where you can find that information. And also notice that we have posted the new October puzzles and also the answers to the September puzzles. And Cindy is scrolling down and clicking on September, and you can see there's 3 different kinds, if you will, of puzzles. That first one, if you want to scroll back up on the left, is that one is the astronomy related. All of them are astronomy related, but it's a crypto quote puzzle, just like what you see in the newspaper, a crypto quote, some sentence and information, and so that's in there. The one on the right is what's called a drop quote puzzle. And what that has in there are all the letters for each of those columns. And what you would do is you would go and post those letters in their appropriate place down there on the column and on the row. And then the last one down here on the left is for those who are familiar with Sudoku, there is, instead of numbers, there are letters. Same principle on Sudoku. And you would work that through, solve it, and you will find a hidden word that is astronomy related. And I would be interested in your comments on each of those 3 different kinds. I like this, I don't like that, or whatever. It's too hard, it's too easy. Any kind of comment that you would have, would appreciate it. And if
And
you maybe have some suggestions or, pardon me, some other kinds, I would be interested and see if we could do those.
well, and
So,
we also, you can send Warren your answers
sure.
because we have a place where you can upload the answers to him
All
on
right.
that particular page as well.
Sure.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much. Let's go now and we'll look at next week. And on Wednesday, the 6th of October, there are two things. First of all, in the morning on October the 6th, the moon, if you want to call it, the monthly cycle begins. And you notice it states it is a new moon and it will begin as far as going there. The new moon, as far as its position, it is in between Earth and the sun. And so actually, we cannot see a new moon because it's the all we would see would be the non-illuminated, the black side, the other side, if you want to call it that we cannot see it. So there we go on this. Now, what we also have, though, that evening, and for all the constellations, I recommend, and that you would start at after sunset, and then you have throughout the entire night to the next morning to view any of these constellations. And here is this first one is Sculptor. And there are 2 pages in our constellation list for each constellation. And as Cindy has scrolled for us there, you see at the first one, there is, if we want to call it, the map. The lighter, the white area is the area in the sky that the astronomers back in 1930 designated would be called the area for the constellation Sculptor. And that's what it is there. Now, those numbers connect with different stars, and I've numbered them from right over to on the right-hand side with number 1, and then going all the way over to the end for the number 12 there, as you can see. And there's a couple of other things, something called a GSP and a CVP. So what in the world is that? So just scroll to the bottom of this page right there, and you will see, first of all, on the left, the CVP is a point that is in the central of the area for each of the constellations. So for people that have a telescope that they can put we'll call it the address, the right ascension and declination for something, it would point them directly in the middle of that constellation, and you'd have the best point to begin viewing all of the area of the constellation. Also, on the right, you see the GSP, and that's our galactic south pole. And what that is if you want to say, that's our Milky Way galaxy, which we are in. That's the south pole of the Milky Way. And that's where you would find it there. Now scroll down, Cindy, on the next page right there. Each constellation then will have a list to begin that will have the numbers of each of the stars, and there is information in there on each one of them. And you can see that there is bold in each different ones. There are 10 different things that I note for you that as far as the direction, which one is the northernmost, westernmost, easternmost, southernmost, but also some other things. And by the way, Sculptor here, if you look there for number 10, G, and go over, you will see its magnitude of all the 7 constellations for the month of October and the stars that I chose. This is the dimmest star of all of them. And it's right at the limit of being able to see it with your naked eye outside. And this night, tomorrow night, would be ideal for that because there would not be any moon at all. Then the other thing, you see the next line, it says bordering constellations. If you'll scroll back up to the first page, Cindy, you say, what do I want the bordering constellations? There they are listed. But if you have a constellation that you want to look at Sculptor, and then you're interested in what is next to it, there are the constellations that border Sculptor, and that's what that's for, to help you as you begin to navigate your way across the sky. Now we go back down to the second page, and this is for all of them. Some of them may have interesting information, others may not. The next to last line in interesting information, the constellation was originally named, and there you see it in French, but it was called the Sculptor's Studio. That was its original name, but the name now is just the Sculptor. And then there is where you would have to be on Earth, the latitudes that you would need to be at or in between those two latitudes that you can view all of that constellation. So we can go back to the calendar, and we can see then that that's the kind of information that I have put there for you for each one of them. Now we go to the next one, if you will, number 7, October the 7th. And this is some additional information I've started putting in now. And for those who are interested in the planets, the Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, when it tells that they're in a certain constellation area, and also when they leave. Then on the 8th is for our moon, and it is then, notice it's what's called a perigee moon, and the statement there, it's the 7th closest of the 13 perigee moons that are occurred during this year. And perigee, of course, as you notice, means that the moon on its monthly orbit around Earth, there's a time when it is closest here to Earth. And so in that case, I would ask you a question. If it's closer, would it be larger or smaller in the sky? And if you got you an answer, send it to Lee and she will get it and let me know that you have that. Now, on Saturday the 9th, notice we have 3 constellations, and you have that night, all 3 of them to consider looking at. Now, let's take the first one there, which is the constellation known as Andromeda. And here we will look at it at its additional page. And the title there, Andromeda, and notice it's, if you will, the Princess of Mythical Ethiopia. Now, a lot of places they'll just say it's Princess of Ethiopia. Well, there is a country of Ethiopia that we have now in Africa, but this is the mythical Ethiopia, going back into the Greek and Roman mythology. And here she is right there, a very famous constellation. And again, I start with the numbering, and over there is a number 1, and then going all the way over to number 18. You see included in there is a red elliptical looking thing with a letter A, and over on the left down there is a yellowish dotted area that's listed as number 8. So, or pardon me, B. So let's go down to the second page and see what in the world we're talking about. Now, there's our list of stars, and we go down all the way and we come, there's number 1, 2, 3, down through 9, and then there's that A, and that is M31, named after the French astronomer in the 1700s, Messier, and he was interested in that time of trying to find comets, and he would record what he could that he saw in the sky through his telescope. Recognized the telescope he used was not as good as the telescope you have today, because the technology had only progressed less than 100 years. Not until Galileo in the 1600s, 1640, I believe, 50, that he had developed what would be called the telescope. But anyway, there's some information there. And in that, what's interesting is this is the farthest object. You can see if you read across there, one can see, not using binoculars or telescopes, naked eye, and gives you its diameter and what all it's doing, and it's a galaxy and that. But notice the first part of it on that first line there, it is 2.5 million light years from Earth. It is the farthest thing you can see with the naked eye, and you would see it that night, and that's still good. There's very little moon that you would you would find it, and it will look like a smudge, like a very, very small, tiny cloud in the sky. When you get a set of binoculars and you find it, you can see it, and it still looks like a cloud, but a little bit larger, and of course a telescope. And the pictures you see in the um, magazines and the books and all like that on YouTube about the constellation and the galaxies there, um, that's beyond the backyard type of telescope. And then we scroll down and there, and you see after number 17, there's B, and that is C28, listed after Caldwell, an astronomer primarily for the southern hemisphere, and he has that. And you see over at the very far right that it's called an open cluster of stars, and it's also relatively pretty dim. There's some, what do we call asterisms? An asterism, all that is, that's a technical name for something that people have given some stars in the sky that they have connected the lines to them, that they're going to call them something. And there you see, there's the baseball diamond, Frederick's glory, the great square, and what I call, see, I have 4 different dippers. I have the teeny dipper, the little dipper, the big dipper, and here the giant dipper. And we would get that when how that Andromeda would be a part of it. And then there's that other information. So let's go back up to the calendar. And what's our next we see on there? We see that was Andromeda. Now we're going to go down a little bit and we're going to look at Pisces the Fishes. So let's go to Pisces the Fishes. Now, in this, Pisces the Fishes, notice in the gray area on the map, up to the upper right, to the right of the arrow for north, there is Andromeda. Now, what I pick out for us for each month is a vertical line from the North Pole region down toward the south of the constellations that are along, plus or minus along that line. So to help you in beginning to find each of the constellations. So once you've located Andromeda, all you have to do is go down, and there you find Pisces. Now, you see let me quickly point you to the constellation called Pegasus there in the gray, and you see four stars, the black dots. They look like a square almost. The one in the upper left there, that's the head of Andromeda, the princess of mythical Ethiopia. So here is my giant dipper. There is Pegasus, which is the winged horse, and those four make the giant dipper, the cup of it, and then going out from the right to the left with Andromeda's head, and then following up northwest, following Andromeda, she is with the stars. That is the handle for my giant dipper. But on Pisces the Fishes, here you have two fish, and the two fish are made up of, first of all, on the right, the lower part, there is that circle, and that's a fish that would be inside there. And by the way, that's an asterism, that circle, called the circlet, Circlet of Pisces. And then the one in the upper top on the left, that's the other fish that we have. And the long lines for each one of them going over down to star number 23, that's called the knot, Knot, of the two fish lines that are tied together, and that's them. Scrolling down on the second page, you would see we're going to have similar information, and you would go on. There's your stars, and notice the asterism, the second item there. There's the circlet, and then you have bordering constellations, and of course, Andromeda is going to be there. And you probably are going to recognize in just a moment that there is another one of those bordering constellations we're going to look at in just a moment. And then interesting information, there's about our spring equinox and information about that, and then the rest of it. So let's go back to the calendar, and we see, and no, we have one more, and it's way down further south after Pisces, and it's called Phoenix, the mythical Firebird. So if you will go to there, Cindy, thank you. Here it is, the mythical Firebird. And in the mythology, this was a bird that grew and lived a long, very, very long time. And then in mythology, it recognized it was old, and it was had a nest of eggs. So it's time for the new generation of birds to be hatched. So she would set the nest on fire, sit on the nest, and burn herself up. And the heat would then cause the egg to hatch, and the new Firebird would uh, be there in the net. So there we are. And if you notice, we're down and see that brown line down below it, that is the planetarium, our latitude here, our southern horizon. So everything from that dashed brown line down toward the bottom, we cannot see unless we travel south to bring that lower part into view. So there you have, let's go back to the calendar. There you have our three of our constellations on one evening, and you would have an enjoyable, busy time doing it. So we have 4 of the 7. Let's look at the second of that next week. On the 10th, at 9 o'clock in the evening, planet Saturn, it says, becomes stationary in right ascension. Oh, what all does that mean? Well, the planets actually, and their movement throughout the year, the major movement that they are going opposite the way the stars go in the sky. The stars go from rising in the east, set in the west. The planets are just the opposite. They go from the west to the east. And at a time, because of the orbital speed, we are faster, of course, in orbiting the sun than the Saturn does, because it's further away from the sun. We will catch up to it, just like when you're out on I-14 or I-35 or whatever, and you are going to pass a car, you pass it up. So we are going in. It's going to look like in the sky that Saturn has stopped, and then it's going to start going back in a different direction as we would watch. And that's what that means. Then on Tuesday the 12th, the moon has gone from new moon to now its first quarter. And then on the 13th, we have our next constellation, and that's Cassiopeia. So we'll go there to our picture of Cassiopeia. Cassiopeia actually is the furthest north of the 7 constellations that we would be looking at here. And you're going to see, as you look down, you can see Andromeda is down below Cassiopeia. And there's those 6, if you want to count, or you can count a little more. But I have there the 6 stars for this. And this is considered the throne seat for Cassiopeia, the queen. Now, if you look at the first 3 over there, first 4 over there on the right, 1, 2, 3, 4, let that in your mind be an arrow pointing down toward star number 2, and you would look further down in the sky. And guess what? Scroll up just a little bit, Cindy, and the picture, and you would then find there's Andromeda, the galaxy M31, and you would go and you would find it and uh, help you to locate it in the sky. So we would go from Cassiopeia down to Andromeda, then we would go on down to each one as we travel. And the other thing is, if you scroll back up, Cindy, on that page, the first page, that if you would, from star number 1 all the way across to star number 6, if you would take your either hand, whichever is your predominant hand, hold it at arm's length, and put either the tip of your thumb or the tip of your little finger on number 1, and then the other, the thumb or the little finger, on number 6, that you're going to get that angle. You're going to have 6 as your anchor point, and you're going to swing from 1, swing that same angle up and to the left. And you can see there's 2 fairly dark stars, and there's a row of little stars right there. You're going to stop. And so 1 then would be just up a little bit above that other black dot for star. That becomes your rotation point. And then from what you have on number 6, you're going to move that around all the way around, and you're going to wind up right at Polaris. So what you have is the angle from 1 to 6 is half of the angle from 6 to Polaris, and that will help you find Polaris in the night sky. Now, And we've already looked at the other information about it, so let's go back to our calendar. Now we're going to go on to the 15th, and there is Venus. It's entering the constellation Ophiuchus, and also because that is such a short little, it goes across a corner, it goes almost immediately. You see there in just barely 7 hours that it goes into the constellation Scorpius. Well, let's look at the second page and the next week on the 17th. And we have the activity of the planet Mercury. And so there's going to give you some information about it. And then there is on the 18th, there is Jupiter. And then we go on Wednesday the 20th, and we've gone from new moon, first quarter, and now we're going to have the full moon. Now, the full moon, a lot of them, we're going to have different common names. And you see, I put those on here. Some call this the harvest moon or the hunter moon. And one of the reasons for being at this time of year to be called that is that it was a good time for harvest the crop, whatever the farmer had, and he and the family or whoever would have a full moon to give them light in the sky that night while they harvested. And then a similar thing, whether a hunter wants light or would prefer it to be dark, but it's also called the hunter moon. Then next on Thursday, Venus continues on. And then on the 22nd, here is our next constellation, which is going to be Cetus, the sea monster, or the whale. So let's scroll up to there, and there it is. And notice that Cetus, just above Cetus, is the constellation of Pisces the Fishes that we talked about. And so you're going down the line to that. And so again, here we have the different stars that I've got labeled for you. However, you see up in close to the tail, there for number 8, is a star called Myra or Myra, M-I-R-A. And the reason I put the name on there is to draw your attention to this. It's a significant star. Let's scroll down and see what kind of information we can get about it. And here we go. And we find Myra in there. And we see the information is number 6, and oh, it's pretty dim, but let's go down, if you will, into interesting information. And we see the second line, Myra, or its other name, Omicron Ceti, was the first variable star discovered. And it goes through a cycle, and it's been doing it for years and years and years, that it goes from very bright, that you can see it with the naked eye, down that it keeps getting dimmer and dimmer until you cannot see it until you have a telescope. And that's a cycle of about 330 plus 331 days. And so that's interesting if you pick it out and you can see it. And then if you watch over a period of time, you will either be watching it getting brighter or it may start to get dimmer. Okay, let's go back to the calendar. And we had over there, as far as our information of Cetus, that we have. And then we have also, if you'll scroll up just a bit, now I have down the 23rd as the night that we will have the night sky tour. However, I've just been informed that the planetarium, there's going to be Halloween party or something that evening. So this night sky tour will either be moved or it will be canceled. So you'll need to pay attention and check on the web page here that Cindy will have on the schedule so that we'll know what is when it's going to be, if it's going to be even. So let's go back to the page for the calendar and there it's also for November are 7 stars, and I listed those for you to see what stars would be looking at for November. Let's go to the next page. Now on our next page, pardon me, next week. On the 24th, we had, first of all, the perigee. The moon was close to us. Now we have the apogee. And the apogee means in its orbit, it is farther from us. The uh, the moon goes around us as a circle, of course, but it's an ellipse as opposed to a perfect single radius, constant radius circle. It moves out farther and it comes in closer. So that's what all this is. And then we have Mercury at a specific location, and it will be at its westernmost angular distance from the sun. So that is a great night on the 25th for you to see it. And you notice I say it's 12 a.m. You want to watch it in the morning. It's going to lead the sun as opposed to follow the sun. So it will be visible in the early morning twilight. Now we go to the 28th and we go to our third quarter moon. We're almost all the way around in the orbit. And then we go, and then 29th, there's Venus at its easternmost elongation. Notice that Mercury was at the westernmost and Venus the easternmost. Mercury and Venus are the only two that have this, what's called the elongation points, and that is only because they are closer to the sun than us. So when you look at Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, you're not looking have the sun in your way when you're trying to look at. And so there's Venus at its easternmost. Look at its time, 4 p.m. So you will watch for Venus to be in the western sky after the sun sets. Now let's go on. And next thing on the 30th, there's Saturn. And remember me saying that it doesn't have the term easternmost elongation or whatever. It's got a different one. And it's on the 30th, it's the eastern quadrature, 90 degrees from the sun. And so that's a good time also to view Saturn. So on the evening of the 30th, we have our next constellation, and that is Triangulum. And you see there, and notice it's where we would have up way above, there's Andromeda. Above Andromeda would be Cassiopeia. So we would have Cassiopeia coming down to Andromeda, coming down to Triangulum, going on further down to Pisces, going on down to Cetus, the sea monster, the whale, going on down to Phoenix, and there we have our constellations. Notice in Triangulum, you got another red ellipse with the letter A. I wonder what that might be. Let's take a look and see. So we scroll down and we see there in the information, there is A, and guess what? It's another one of the labeled galaxies that Messier found, and it's labeled M33. The 33 and Andromeda 31 doesn't mean anything. They're not the 31st largest or the 33rd brightest or anything like that. That's just the number he gave to each object in his logbook. So this galaxy is the 33rd object he saw in the sky. And we go on over there on the first line, you can see it's a little further away, 2.8 million light years from uh, Earth. And for some people, maybe they might be able to see this. So for them, it's not Andromeda the farthest most or furthest most. It may be Triangulum, but those people, that's uh, not everybody has the night sky visibility down that way. You go on over to the right, and it says it's Triangulum Galaxy is its name, and it's one of the 5 galaxies that is visible to naked eye, and there's the other 4 that are listed. There we can see 3 of the 5 where we are here. The other 2, number 2 and number 3, the large and the small Magellanic Clouds, are in the southern hemisphere, and you cannot see them until you go way south. Magellanic, named after the captain of the ship, Magellan, who was from Portugal, who was one of the first to circle the entire globe, Earth, and kept a logbook, what all the things he found, and that logbook had information in there about these 2 clouds, because they didn't know there were things called galaxies at that time. And there you go, and the other information that we have. Let's go back to the calendar, and where we go now to the last week, and on the 31st we have here the sun is entering the constellation of Libra. So we now have gone through all 7 of our constellations. We started with sculpture, then we had Andromeda, then Pisces, then Phoenix, then Cassiopeia, then Cetus, and then Triangulum. And so that's the 7 for the month of October. And then you see there is the remainder of that last week of October. There is the first part of November, and there are, you see, there's one and one constellation for of November is already on the 2nd. So that's pretty well it for the calendar that we have here, and we're way ahead of time. So if anybody has any questions or comments, let us know. And Cindy, let's see what you'd like to point out while we have the time on the LibGuide for astronomy or whatever.
Sure. Well, I want to let everybody know that our next night sky tour will be on October the 28th. And so we'll cover that one as well. And if you are looking for where to find the astronomy lib guide, you go to our library website, and it's under research study guides. Here we go, our astronomy science and science theater. And on this, there, you can find all your constellation maps. And Warren has just sent us some really cool things where he's got the constellations sorted alphabetically, um, with a list, and he's also got it by month and date. So he's got us all extremely organized. So thank you for the hard work that you put into these, Warren. We truly appreciate it. And we truly appreciate you taking the time. Let's see if there were any questions. Lee, were there any questions?
No questions, but someone said that everything he was saying was very interesting.
Very good.
Yeah, we love all this. I look forward to it every month because I love astronomy and I get the chance to see it. And there's nothing better, guys, than to go out to like a country road where you can see the Milky Way with the naked eye, and then you can find all of the constellations. Or if you don't want to go that far, make sure that you go on over to one of the planetarium shows that Warren has, and he will show you on the dome where everything is, and will point it out in the dome picture for us, huh?
Yeah. By the way, October is the beginning, if you will. We're now in fall, and from fall into winter, October, November, December, January, and some February. But through the end of the year and the first of the next year is the ideal night skies to start looking, and some very very important and well-known constellations are going to be showing up for you to view in the sky. And if you come to the planetarium when I do the night sky tours on different ones, Andromeda and Cassiopeia and some other constellations all fit in with a story, and Cetus, and so I make a story out of it to help you to get that story in your mind and knowing what constellations to look for, and then you can tell the story to people and family that with you out in the out at the sky, night sky.
Well, and also, doesn't the meteor showers, aren't there a lot of meteor
Yeah.
showers during the fall and the winter especially?
Yes, there's different ones. And by the way, in the quick time we have left, a meteor shower, what we have is we on Earth, in our orbit around the sun, we are going through the dust trail of a comet that had earlier in the year or earlier in the time, had gone across our orbit, where Earth is. And so picture in your mind that you are going down a two-lane road in the paved road out in the country, and up ahead you see me in my pickup, and I'm on a dirt road, and I'm ahead of you up there, and I'm going to come up and go across the road that you're driving on from right to left, and I stir up the dust, and you get the privilege of going through my dust. Well, my dust would be the dust of the comet, and because of the speed of Earth as we are moving around the sun and the speed of the comet combined is so very fast, and so those little bitty pieces of dust come and impact, if you will, the top of our atmosphere, and they get heated up and they glow, and guess what? You got meteors.
So we're basically eating a comet's dust, huh?
That's right. Just make sure you have your window up.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Astronomy is totally fascinating. And we were talking before we did this that we were looking into maybe doing some really cool space event in the spring. So we love having our CTC astronomer here on campus. And so make sure that you guys check out go to the planetarium, check out some of their shows. It's a really awesome place, and Warren is there being his awesome self. Well, and speaking of awesome, we have another awesome virtual event this Monday. We we've had a lot of students over the years ask us questions about the criminal justice department. And we're librarians and, jack of all trades, but sometimes master of none of certain subjects. And so we invited the criminal justice department to Mr. John Shella to visit with us on Monday. And he can kind of answer some of the questions that students have asked us over the years. And they'll give us a little tour of what's happening in their department, but that will be everybody's opportunity to ask them about the police, the EMS, the firefighters. So definitely make sure you come and see us at noon on Monday because we will be here. All right, we're going to switch gears on that. All right, well, thank you so much, Warren, for visiting with us again. You're awesome, and we enjoy having you. And
Thank
everybody,
you.
you guys enjoy the much cooler, little bit cooler weather. And we will see you on Monday. So, Lee, thank you again, and take us out.